I didn't even feel my feet touch the floor. I was half running, half praying down the bright hallway of St. Elmer's Family Clinic, clutching a paper cup of vending machine coffee and a bouquet of grocery store daisies that had already lost 2 petals in the parking lot. My mother had been admitted that morning for observation, which the doctor said in a calm voice but which sounded like thunder in my ears. I am Janet Whitmore, an 85-year-old retired school librarian from Kansas City. I have a quiet life, a yellow house with blue shutters, and a heart stuffed to the brim with family recipes, church hymns, and the sound of my grandchildren laughing on Sunday afternoons. I am a blonde grandma. Everyone says I have sunny hair and blue eyes that still sparkle. And I don't move as fast as I once did. But that morning I moved. As I neared my mother's room, room 312, the hallway seemed to stretch like taffy. The smell of antiseptic and warm plastic clung to the air. Monitors beeped in a steady rhythm like metronomes. I recognized the whisper of shoe soles and the soft murmur of nurses swapping notes. I just wanted to see my mother. She is 103, tiny as a sparrow, with sharp thoughts on good days and a soft cotton fog on others. She still calls me my girl. I can be 85 and still be someone's girl. I turned the corner to 312 and stopped. The door was not fully closed. It sat on the latch, cracked just enough for sound to slip through. I was about to push it open when I heard my husband's voice. Mark. His voice was low, warm, the way it gets when he wants something. Okay, he said to someone inside, and then he laughed in a hushed way. We're past guessing. Real. We're pregnant. Pregnant. That single word punched the daisies out of my hands. The paper cup tipped. Coffee bled into the bouquet and spread like a stain across the hallway tile. Pregnant. The word slammed through my chest like a door blown open by the wind. In that moment my heart felt both heavy and hollow, like a church bell rung too hard. I pressed my palm to the cool wall and stared at the crack in the door. I could see part of a white sleeve, the edge of a blue nurse's badge, a strand of light brown hair. A nurse. My husband's voice, low and sweet again. I told you we'd figure it out. After today, after the paperwork, it'll be simpler. Paperwork. My mouth went dry. My mind stumbled over that word. Pregnant. Like a stone in the road. Pregnant belongs to young women on summer porches with lemonade, to middle-aged ladies in maternity jeans, not to a nurse in my mother's hospital room whispering with my husband. Not to me. I am 85. I bake pies. I watch late-night baseball. I iron my church blouse on Saturdays, and I have laugh lines as deep as the story of our marriage. I took a slow step backward and another forward, as if my own legs could not decide what to do with me. I swallowed hard and peered again. Mark, the nurse whispered, a quick shiver in her voice. Keep your voice down. Right, he said softer. I'm just excited. The nurse's badge flashed as she moved. The name on it caught the light for a second. Emily R. I had seen her earlier at the nurse's station, neat ponytail, steady hands, the kind of calm face you want near your mother's bed. I felt something sour and hot rise in my throat. I stepped back again and gulped a breath. I am a woman who taught children to read, who told 1,000 stories in 1,000 voices to little faces on a threadbare carpet square. I can put my voice back together. I can step through that door and speak. But my knees shook. My hands shook too. Pregnant. The word banged around my skull like a trapped bird. It hit old memories on its way. My wedding day with Mark, the way he fixed the garage door for me when the spring broke, the time he brought me a peach pie just because, the evenings we watched tiny meteors fall across the summer sky from lawn chairs in our backyard. How long had the word been living inside him? How long had it been living inside her? I lifted the handle just as someone inside the room said, "We need the power of attorney form signed." That froze me. Power of attorney? For my mother? My hand dropped from the handle like it had been burned. I wasn't just hearing a private confession. I was hearing plans. Quiet plans. Plans that had no room for me. I slid back into the shadow where the hallway jogged and pressed my shoulder to the wall. My head felt full of buzzing. At my age you think you have seen everything. But there I stood, a blonde grandma with a heart like a cracked plate, and I hadn't seen this coming at all. Janet. A different voice said behind me. I jumped. A candy striper with a cart of magazines smiled past me, not even noticing the mess at my feet. You okay, ma'am? She asked, polite and sunny. I'm fine, I lied. Just dropped my flowers. She wheeled on. I knelt and gathered the daisies with hands that didn't feel like mine. Simple things can save you for a few seconds. Petals, stems, a paper cup, but not for long. I stood up straighter. I thought of my mother's bird-bone hands. I thought of the way she pressed my fingers when she recognized my face. I thought of the voice of the doctor. Observation. I thought of my husband's laugh. Pregnant. I pressed my palm flat to the door. I pushed it open. The room smelled like hand soap and old sunlight. My mother's bed was empty. Her blanket was folded at the foot like a white flag. The monitor was dark. On the little tray by the window, there was a glass with a pink lipstick print on its rim. Not my mother's color. Mark was at the foot of the bed, tie loosened, face surprised in a way that slid fast back into smooth. Emily stood by the chart, her ponytail neat, her badge shining, her fingers white around a pen. "Janet," Mark said as if I had come home early from the grocery store. "You're here." "Where is my mother?" My voice sounded steady, thank the Lord. "Her bed is empty." Emily blinked. "She's, getting a CT scan," she said quickly. "Downstairs. They just took her." "Without telling me?" I asked. "You weren't here," Mark answered easy, like we were discussing a missed call. He reached for the chart, then set it back down. "Honey, there's some paperwork we need to go over. It's all very standard." There it was again. Paperwork, sitting in the room like a wolf that had learned to smile. "Standard." I repeated. "For what?" "For," Emily began, but Mark's hand brushed her arm. It was a small touch, a quiet one, but it might as well have been a flare in the night. My stomach flipped. "For the plan," Mark said gently. "Hospice. If it comes to that." Hospice. Another word, heavy and terrible, dropped at my feet. "My mother walked into this clinic," I said. "She had a dizzy spell at breakfast. She spilled her tea. She did not sign up to be shipped off to die in a place with a back door." "Janet," Mark soothed, that soft voice again. "Let's not make a scene." I looked at Emily's face. She was young, late 20s maybe, cheeks flushed with nerves. Her hand drifted to her stomach in a way I recognized from the mothers I'd watched over the years. A protective touch. Soft and quick, almost unconscious. "You said you were pregnant," I said quietly. Emily's eyes went wide. Mark's jaw moved once, like he was choosing a drawer to put his next word in. "Janet," he said, and there was a warning in it. "This is not the time." "Then when is the time?" My voice trembled and climbed. "When you sign my mother out and sign me away too?" "Ma'am," Emily said, and her voice had that trained calm, "we're only trying to make sure your mother is comfortable." "Comfort is a good blanket," I snapped, surprising myself. "Comfort is her hand in mine. Comfort is her church choir CD playing low and the smell of lemon bars from the auxiliary bake sale. Comfort is not a form you slide under a door when her daughter steps out for coffee." Mark's face shifted again, smooth as a lake that hides sharp rocks. "Security," he said softly, not to me but toward the hallway, as if the word could travel on its own and fetch help. "We may need." I took one step forward. "Don't you dare." Something in my voice stopped him. For a second, the room was so quiet I could hear the small hiss of the air vent and the scratch of Emily's pen against paper as her nervous thumb rubbed the clip. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I couldn't. The world had shrunk to this bright square room with its white walls and empty bed and two people I suddenly didn't know at all. "You can't do this," I said. "Not to her. Not to me." Mark's eyes flicked to Emily's stomach and back to my face. He squared his shoulders in that way men do when they want to look kind and firm at the same time. "Janet," he said, "we need to talk about our future. All of us. All of us." The words hung in the air like a cracked chandelier. Then, loud and sharp, a voice burst over the intercom. "Code blue. Room 312. Code blue." My mother's room number. Emily's pen clattered to the floor. Mark lunged for the door. I ran with a speed I didn't know I still had. The hallway exploded into motion. Shoes, shouts, the rattle of a crash cart. And as the door swung wide, I saw a nurse in the hall raise her hand to stop me. "Family wait outside," she said firm. "I am family," I cried. "I am her daughter." I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the door to room 312 as if it had grown teeth. My breath came out in short, sharp puffs like a schoolgirl running laps in gym class. But I wasn't a schoolgirl. I was an 85-year-old woman with trembling knees and a heart that felt ready to burst out of my chest. "Please," I whispered, pressing my palms against the door. "Please let her be okay." I could hear the muffled frenzy on the other side. Orders being barked, machines shrieking, rubber saws squealing on tile. My mother's life was being measured in numbers and shouts while I stood locked out like some stranger. For a split second I thought about fainting. Just sinking to the floor and letting the world handle itself. But no, my mother had raised me to fight, to stay upright when storms came. So I stood tall, or at least as tall as an old woman can manage, and waited. That's when I felt him beside me. Mark. My husband. His cologne was faint but sharp, that woodsy scent he always wore on Sunday mornings. It used to comfort me. Now it clung to me like smoke after a fire. "Janet," he said softly. Too softly. "You shouldn't upset yourself. They're doing everything they can." I turned my head slowly and my eyes landed on his. Blue eyes that once looked at me like I was the only woman alive. Now they looked past me, through me, like I was an obstacle in his way. I lowered my voice so the nurses couldn't hear. "What was that in there, Mark? Don't you dare play dumb with me. Pregnant? Paperwork? Future?" He blinked once, his jaw tightening. "Not here. We'll talk at home." "At home?" My voice cracked like glass. "My mother is in there fighting for her life, and you're standing here planning your next chapter with a nurse who's half my age?" His face twitched just once. "Janet, you're making assumptions. Emily is just..." "Don't say just a nurse," I cut him off. I heard every word. "You can twist it if you like, but you can't untwist that word. Pregnant." A silence stretched between us, broken only by the alarms inside the room. My mind raced with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. How long had this been going on? How many nights had he kissed my forehead and told me to sleep well while sneaking out to meet her? I clutched the daisies to my chest, their stems bent, petals soggy from spilled coffee. They looked pitiful. Just like me in that moment. The door suddenly burst open and a doctor stepped out. His face was pale, his glasses fogged from the heat of rushing. "Family?" he asked quickly. "Yes, I'm her daughter," I said, my voice firming up. "She's stable for now," he said. Relief washed through me like cool water. "But she gave us a scare. We're moving her to ICU for closer monitoring. Only one visitor at a time for the moment." I nodded so hard my neck ached. "I'll go in with her." The doctor's eyes flicked to Mark, then back to me. "Of course. Just a moment while we transfer her." Mark leaned closer, his voice low and urgent. "Janet, don't make a scene in there. For her sake." I pulled back and studied him. The man who had shared my bed for decades, who had walked beside me through arthritis appointments, retirements, funerals, and family dinners. And now, here he stood with secrets written across his face. "I won't make a scene," I said finally. "But I will remember everything." He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the nurses rolled my mother past us on a gurney. Her face was so pale, her lips the color of faded roses. But when her eyes fluttered open for a second, she looked right at me and whispered something. I bent down quickly. "Mama? I'm here." Her lips trembled. "Don't let them." And then her eyes shut again as the nurses hurried her down the hall. I stood frozen, her words rattling in my ears. "Don't let them." "Don't let them what?" Mark touched my elbow, but I shook him off. I wasn't sure if I was shaking from fear, rage, or both. I followed the gurney, each step feeling heavier than the last. Behind me I could hear Emily's voice, soft, careful, nervous. "Mark, maybe she knows." I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew she was right. They had underestimated me. And I was about to show them just how wrong they were. They moved my mother to ICU and the world got smaller. Glass walls, blue lights, the hush of serious things. I stood by the window, hands folded to keep them from shaking, while they settled her into a room that looked like a spaceship. Soft hissing from the oxygen, a screen that wrote her heartbeat in green ink, tubes like thin snakes leading to machines that made promises I didn't quite trust. A nurse with silver hair and kind eyes touched my elbow. "I'm Karen, the charge nurse. Only one visitor at a time and short visits. She needs rest." "I'm her daughter," I said. "I won't take long." Mark hovered a step behind, close enough to remind me he was there, far enough to look respectful. Emily stayed across the hall, pretending to study charts. She wasn't fooling anyone, Not me, not the way her hand kept drifting to her stomach like a moth to a porch light. Inside the room, my mother seemed smaller than she'd been an hour ago. The thin blanket rose and fell with each breath. Her eyelids fluttered. I leaned close until the antiseptic smell filled my nose and the machine's beeps stitched a steady seam through my fear. "Mama," I whispered. "It's me. Your girl." Her lips moved, a dry rustle. I held a cup and wet sponge to her mouth the way I learned when my father was sick. "Don't let them," she breathed, the words like little feathers falling into my hands. "Don't let who, Mama?" My voice shook. "What are they trying to do?" Her eyes opened just a sliver, blue, watery, still sharp in a way that sliced me right in two. "Paper. Janet," she murmured. "They want the paper. The paper." I pressed my hand over hers. "They won't get it," I told her, and meant it with the kind of fierce promise an old woman can still make. "Not while I'm standing." Her eyes closed again, but I felt the faint squeeze of her fingers. It traveled up my arm like a little blessing, and I tucked that feeling in my pocket for later. I would need it. When I stepped back into the hall, Mark was waiting with a carefully arranged face. "How is she?" he asked, as if we were on a neighbor's porch discussing weather. "Stable," I said. "And clear. She knows what she knows." "Good," he murmured. "Then this won't be so hard." Before I could ask what that meant, a woman in a navy blazer approached with a folder hugged to her chest. She had fresh lipstick and the kind of smile people practice in mirrors. A badge hung from her neck. "Patient Services, Social Work." "Mrs. Whitmore," she said gently. "I'm Dana. I hear we need to review some paperwork to make sure your mother's wishes are honored." There it was again. The room seemed to tilt just a fraction. "What paperwork?" I asked, keeping my tone even. She opened the folder and slid out a stack clipped at the top. "We've been told there's a durable power of attorney for healthcare and a new advance directive executed this morning, naming your husband, Mr. Whitmore, as the primary decision-maker." My breath snagged on the words. I reached for the pages, but Mark's hand landed on them first, casual as a cat, then offered them to me like a gift. "Janet," he said softly, "it's the right thing. You're exhausted. I can shoulder this." I looked down at the top sheet. The signature line wore my mother's name, Margaret Louise Ellison, but something was wrong. The L looped low in a way I had never seen. And above it, the printed name had a middle initial my mother stopped using in 1951. She told me that herself, laughing as she dropped her fountain pen into a bridal registry book the year she married my father. "No more Louise," she said then. "I'll keep the L in my pocket." My voice came out steady. "My mother hasn't used her middle name in 74 years. Dana's smile flickered. "Sometimes older adults revert to—" "She didn't revert," I said. "She was baking lemon bars with me on Tuesday. She wrote a note for the church raffle. I watched her sign it, Margaret Ellison. Not Louise. Not a single curl on that L." Mark cleared his throat, a small polite noise. "Janet, we can talk about style later. The notary stamp is right here." I lifted the page until the light ran across the embossed circle. I could see the stamp. I couldn't see the notary's signature. "Who notarized this?" I asked. Dana flipped to the last page. "A J. Redding. We use a mobile notary when families need quick assistance." She glanced at Mark. "Mr. Whitmore said you were on your way and we didn't want to delay care decisions." I breathed in, breathed out. My hands stopped shaking. Sometimes you get so scared you come out the other side into something crystal and fierce. "Then let's be clear," I said. "My mother named me her healthcare proxy 10 years ago. The document is in my safe at home and on file with her primary doctor. If a change was made this morning, it was made without me. I want patient advocacy and the hospital's legal officer. Now." Dana's practiced smile softened into something real. He nodded quick. "I'll page them." Mark's jaw tightened. "Janet, don't make this adversarial." "Adversarial," I repeated quietly. "I'm protecting my mother. That's the opposite of adversarial. That's love." Emily shifted behind him, eyes drifting to her belly again. For a moment I saw not a nurse but a frightened girl caught in a riptide. Then I remembered the word that broke me in the hallway. Pregnant, and the pity dried up like rain on hot pavement. While we waited, I took my phone from my purse. It buzzed with a new voicemail from my landline, which I forward to my cell in case the church calls. I tapped it and lifted the phone to my ear. A man's voice. Mark's. The recording crackled with that hollow kitchen tile echo small houses have. Hey, it's me. I'm at Janet's grabbing the insurance folder. Don't worry. Once the POA's signed, we can move her mother to a place that's easier. Just keep her comfortable till I get back. And babe, don't forget the prenatal vitamins. We'll celebrate tonight. Love you. The message ended with a soft clink like keys on a counter. I stood there with the phone pressed to my ear long after the silence began. Then I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to 3 places. My email, my grandson Luke, and my neighbor Elaine, who runs our church committee like a little sheriff. At 85, you learn to leave breadcrumbs. Dana returned with a neatly dressed man carrying a thin briefcase and a woman with a badge that said patient advocate. The man introduced himself as counsel. He had a neat beard and careful eyes. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, will review both documents, your existing proxy and this new directive, and verify capacity and execution. In the meantime, no changes will be made to your mother's care without your consent. Thank you, I said and felt my knees exhale. Mark slipped into a smoother version of himself. We're all on the same team, he said to counsel and smiled in that way that made salesmen trust him back when he sold modular homes. We just want what's best. Counsel nodded, non-committal. Of course. A low alarm chirped inside my mother's room, a slow, nagging bird. Karen, the charge nurse, stepped in and adjusted a sensor on mother's finger. The alarm hushed. I moved to the window again, watching my mother's chest rise and fall under the thin blanket. Her skin looked like paper, yes, but paper can hold wills and love letters and recipes that outlive the hands that wrote them. Paper, I thought. The right paper saves us. The wrong paper buries us. I would not let the wrong paper win. That was the quiet resolve, the plan stitching itself together in my mind. Then the high came sharp and sudden. A young transport tech rolled a wheelchair down the hallway, glanced at our little cluster and asked the air, Whitmore, Margaret? Pick up for imaging. Karen poked her head out. No transport ordered, she said crisp. Not without my sign-off. The tech frowned, checked his tablet. Order came through 5 minutes ago, stat ultrasound. Karen's eyes flicked to me, then to counsel. Who placed that order? He angled the screen. The ordering provider. E.R. My gaze slid slowly to Emily's badge, Emily R. Karen's voice hardened. Cancel that. No non-emergency transport without the attending's signature. I'll page Dr. Patel. The tech shifted, uneasy. It says, family requested expedite. Which family? I asked, already knowing. Before anyone could answer, my mother's door opened. Emily stood in the threshold in fresh gloves, a small syringe in one hand. Clear fluid, tiny barrel, a 2-second push if you've done it 1,000 times. I knew that much from years of caring for aging neighbors. Karen moved fast. What's that med, nurse? Lorazepam, Emily said, professional and calm. For agitation. Patient's asleep, Karen replied. Hold it. Emily's eyes flicked to me, then to Mark, then back to the syringe. Something passed between them that felt like a cold draft under a door. Counsel stepped forward, tone even. Until the documents are reviewed, no new sedatives without the attending's order and the current proxy's consent. He looked at me. Mrs. Whitmore? No, I said. Not without the doctor. For one heartbeat, the hall was a still photograph. Emily with the syringe, Mark with a pleasant mask, Dana hugging her folder, Karen solid as a lighthouse, my reflection in the ACU glass, an old woman who suddenly looked like steel. Then everything slid at once. A code announcement crackled overhead, rapid response ICU corridor, and 2 residents jogged past. The transport tech's radio squawked. A phone rang at the desk. In that moment of noise, Mark reached for the door handle as if to steady himself, and Emily took 1 step into my mother's room, the syringe low and close to her palm. Stop, I said louder than I meant to, voice coming from a place in me that used to stand in front of rows of first graders and keep order with a look. Step back from my mother. Karen moved between Emily and the bed, palm up, not touching but blocking the way nurses learn. Emily out. Now. Emily hesitated, then slid the syringe into her pocket and stepped back into the hall, cheeks bright with heat. I was following an order, she said. From whom? Karen asked. From the family, Emily answered, eyes cutting toward Mark like a knife. Counsel's pen scratched against his pad. Dana's lips pressed into a thin line. I felt something in me settle into place. Heavy, sure, like a door found its frame. We're done here, I said. Until Dr. Patel arrives, no meds. No transport. No more hallway whispers. Mark tried a different tactic. Hands open, voice warm honey. Janet, you're tired. Let's get you a coffee. I'll sit with your mother. 5 minutes. I'm not leaving her side, I said. Not for 5 seconds. We stared at each other across a space filled with humming machines and 100 unspoken years. He smiled first, but it didn't reach his eyes. Suit yourself, he said lightly. For a little while the hallway calmed. Karen positioned a chair by the window for me. I sat, knees together like a schoolgirl, and watched my mother breathe. I prayed little prayers. I texted Luke. Everything okay? I sent Elaine a heart. I listened for the sound of Dr. Patel's shoes. And then, in the soft lull that follows a storm, I did the one foolish thing I promised myself I wouldn't do. I closed my eyes. Maybe it was 30 seconds. Maybe it was a minute. I heard a soft wheeling sound like a cart. I heard a murmur, a whisper, a shoe squeak. I opened my eyes. The room beyond the glass was empty. The blanket was folded at the foot like a white flag. The monitor was dark. The 4 pole stood there like a lonely tree. I shot to my feet so fast the chair skidded. Where is she? I demanded, the words tearing my throat on the way out. Where is my mother? Karen spun, eyes wide. She's not on transport. Dana fumbled with her folder. Counsel looked up, shock finally cracking his calm. Down the corridor an elevator chimed. Its doors were closing on a glimpse of pale hair and a thin wrist, a corner of a folded blanket, a transport aid I didn't recognize. And standing in front of the doors, blocking my view, was Mark. One hand raised as if waving to someone inside. The elevator doors sealed with a soft kiss. I ran. My old legs found a speed I had forgotten. Hold that elevator, I shouted, voice ringing down the steel and glass canyon of ICU. But the light above the doors flicked from 3 to 2 to 1 and then went blank. When I reached the panel, breath burning in my chest, a single page fluttered to the floor like a white leaf. I bent and picked it up with shaking fingers. Discharge. Transfer to long-term care. Family request. Signed, Whitmore. My husband's signature. My mother, gone. I stared at the page in my hands, the bold black letters swimming before my eyes. Discharge. Transfer. Family request. The ink was sharp, but my vision blurred as if I were looking at it underwater. And then, like a jagged cut, I saw the name at the bottom. Whitmore. Not Margaret Ellison. Not my mother. My husband. The hallway seemed to tilt. The paper crinkled in my grip. At 85 years old, I thought I'd lived through every betrayal a human heart could withstand. But this, my own husband's name dragging my mother out of safety, was a knife I hadn't seen coming. Where did they take her? My voice cracked like a whip, sharp enough to draw stares from the nurse's station. Karen, the charge nurse, stormed up beside me. Who authorized this? No one leaves ICU without my clearance. She snatched the page from my hand, her eyes narrowing. This isn't valid. This isn't even on the correct form. The lawyer, counsel, read it over her shoulder. His mouth tightened. This looks like a forged order. Ma'am, he said to me carefully, you need to stay calm, but we need to act quickly. Your mother is in danger of being removed illegally. Mark stepped forward, his palms up, the picture of innocence. Everyone please. Let's not turn this into a circus. Janet, you're overwrought. She's just being transferred somewhere more comfortable, that's all. Somewhere with round-the-clock care. I spun on him, my face burning hot. Comfortable. I spat the word like it was poison. You mean hidden. Out of my reach. Out of anyone's eyes but yours and hers. I jabbed a finger toward Emily, who stood frozen a few steps back, her face pale as linen. Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Her hand drifted almost automatically to her belly again. Karen didn't wait for more. She hit the red emergency button on the wall, summoning security and administration. Nobody leaves this floor until we track that patient, she barked. Within seconds, 2 hospital security officers appeared, radios squawking. They had the solid stance of men who knew how to block a doorway. One of them turned to Mark. "Sir, we need you to stay right here." Mark's mask slipped just a fraction. His smile faltered, his jaw clenched, and for the first time, I saw a flash of the man behind the charm. Calculating. I gripped the edge of the nurse's counter to steady myself. "You signed my mother out like she was a package at the post office," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "You and that girl. But I'm not letting her disappear. Not while I still have breath." Security fanned out, radios chattering. Someone called for the transport desk. Karen spoke rapid fire into her phone, demanding to know which aide had wheeled my mother out and which elevator they'd taken. The floor hummed with sudden urgency. But then a chilling thought hit me. What if the elevator hadn't gone to the lobby at all? What if they'd taken her out through the basement, where deliveries, laundry, and trash left the hospital unnoticed every day? The idea made my stomach twist. I shoved past Counsel and Karen and pressed the down button on the panel, my finger trembling but steady enough to leave a dent. Mark reached out, trying to touch my shoulder. "Janet, listen. Don't you touch me," I snapped, spinning to face him. "You betrayed me. You betrayed my mother. You lied in her room in front of her bed while she fought for her life. And for what? For her? For a baby you're too much of a coward to claim in the light." His mouth opened, but I didn't wait for an answer. The elevator dinged and the doors slid open. The security officers stepped in with me. "Basement," I said. My voice was iron now. The ride down was silent except for the grind of the cables. My heart beat fast, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. I wasn't just a grandmother or an old woman anymore. I was a daughter, fighting like a lioness for the woman who had given me life. The basement smelled of bleach and diesel, cold air moving in strange drafts. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A line of stretchers stood against the wall and carts of linens rolled past. And then in the far corner by the service exit I saw it. A gurney moving fast, pushed by a man in scrubs I didn't recognize. My mother lay on it, a blanket pulled up to her chin. "Stop him!" I cried. The security officers broke into a run, their radios barking for backup. The man pushed faster, aiming for the double doors that led to the loading dock. I ran too. My knees screamed, but I didn't care. Each step was fueled by every bedtime story my mother had read me, every pie she baked, every hymn she hummed while hanging laundry. I would not let her vanish into the dark. The gurney reached the doors just as one security officer lunged and grabbed the back rail. The man in scrubs shoved hard, but the officer held on. The blanket slipped, sliding down my mother's chest. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked straight at me. "Janet," she whispered, her voice hoarse but clear. "Don't let him." The words broke off as the man yanked at something on the side of the gurney. A syringe glinted in his hand, needle poised. I screamed. And in that frozen instant, the syringe hovered inches above my mother's arm, ready to plunge. Time slowed until every sound had an echo. The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry insects. The wheels of the gurney squealed. My breath was loud in my own ears. The man in scrubs leaned in with the syringe, his hands steady, his eyes flat. "Drop it," the closer security officer barked, one palm up, the other still gripping the rail of the gurney. The man didn't drop it. I moved before I knew I could. At 85 you learn what you can't do. Jog in the park, lift a suitcase, kneel without planning how to stand back up. But you forget there are still things you can do. I grabbed the man's wrist with both hands and squeezed with a strength I didn't recognize. My fingers dug into sinew and bone. The syringe bobbled, caught the light, and clattered to the concrete. He cursed and tried to shove me back. Security surged forward. One officer pinned his shoulder to the door. The other swept the syringe away with the side of his shoe, then kicked it under a laundry cart. "Hands where I can see them," the officer snapped. The man froze. His badge flipped over on its lanyard, showing a blank white backside. No name. No photo. Just plastic. My mother's eyes were open, blue and scared, a small C on a thin face. "Janet," she whispered, breath catching. "Paper. Don't let him." "I won't," I said, choking on the vow. The elevator behind us dinged. The doors opened onto a new cluster. Karen with her jaw set, Counsel with his briefcase crooked like a shield, Dana hugging her folder as if it were a child, and behind them Mark and Emily. Mark took one step and stopped when he saw the scene. The pinned man, the kicked-away syringe, my hands still shaking. "What is this?" Mark asked, voice pitching high with outrage he wore like a tie. What on earth is happening? An attempted unauthorized drug administration, counsel said, crisp and cool. And an attempted unauthorized removal of a patient. Emily's eyes darted from the syringe under the cart to the blank badge. Her face lost color. One hand floated to her stomach. It was a stat ultrasound order, she said, voice too trembly. I thought it was real. Karen's look could have split a log. You placed it. Under your own login. Mark said. Emily stopped and bit her lip hard enough to leave a white line. He said the family wanted. The family is me, I cut in. Her daughter. I turned to Mark. And you are no one to make choices for my mother. He tried to smile. It wobbled. Janet, this is a misunderstanding spiraling out of control. Security cuffed the man in scrubs. He stared straight ahead, jaw flexing, eyes like dull marbles. Name? The officer asked. The man kept silent. Check his pockets, Karen ordered. I want to know what meds he brought onto my floor. They turned out his pockets. Alcohol swabs, a folded paper with an address, Willow Pines long-term care, and another small syringe wrapped in a napkin. No wallet. No phone. Counsel took one careful step closer. We'll need police, he said to security. Chain of custody on the syringes. Hospital risk management too. Yes, Karen said. And page Dr. Patel, now. My mother's fingers fluttered against the blanket. I leaned in so close my hair brushed her cheek. Mama, I'm here. You're safe. Do you hear me? Cedar, she whispered, the word like a moth battering a lampshade. Cedar Box. June 78. Bank. Cedar Box. June 1978. Bank. The words slid into a place in my memory and clicked like a key. I saw a summer kitchen in my mind, a radio playing soft country, my mother filing recipe cards in a cedar box that smelled like Christmas. On the inside lid she kept little things with big weight. Baptism certificates, a gold locket, a deposit slip. The paper, I whispered back. It's in the cedar box. She didn't speak again, but her eyes told me enough. He was still in there. Still fighting. 2 uniformed police officers arrived. They took statements, bagged the syringes, and collected the blank badge. One officer, a woman with calm eyes and a no-nonsense voice, looked at Mark longer than she looked at anyone else. Sir, we'll need you to stay on site for further questions, she said. This is a serious incident. I'm not going anywhere, he said smoothly. I pulled my phone from my sweater pocket and tapped the voicemail from my landline. I set the volume to high and hit play. Mark's voice floated into the cold basement air, bright and clear. Hey, it's me. I'm at Janet's grabbing the insurance folder. Don't worry. Once the POA's signed we can move her mother to a place that's easier. Just keep her comfortable till I get back. And babe, don't forget the prenatal vitamins. We'll celebrate tonight. Love you. Silence smashed down after it played. Even the buzzing lights seemed to hush. Emily's face crumpled. She looked at Mark like she was seeing him for the first time. You told me, she whispered. You told me Janet wanted this. He said she was confused. That she has early dementia. I let out a sound that surprised even me, half laugh, half gasp. Early dementia? I run the church bake sale spreadsheet, dear. I remember every hymn verse and every face in my neighborhood for 40 years. I hear a lie at 100 yards. Emily's eyes filled and one tear spilled, tracing a bright line down her cheek. She pressed her hand hard over her mouth. Guilt is a heavy coat. It looked too big on her. Mark's smile snapped off. He turned to the police officer. This is out of context, he said. I was helping with paperwork. I love my wife. I care about her mother. We all want the best here. The officer's pen paused over her notebook. We'll see, she said. Back upstairs, Karen ordered, voice tight. Now. Dr. Patel is waiting. We moved like a strange parade, me at the head, pushing the gurney with a security officer at my side. Karen walking point, counsel and Dana whispering, the police flanking the silent man in scrubs, Emily trailing, shaking, Mark casting glances like a salesman scanning a crowded room for his mark. In ICU, Dr. Patel met us with sharp eyes and a sharper tone. No meds without my order. No transport without my signature. From this moment, All changes go through me and Ms. Whitmore. He looked at me. Agreed. Agreed, I said and felt an anchor drop inside me. They settled my mother back in. Monitors woke and drew her heartbeat in green again. The oxygen hummed. Karen set my chair at the window. I sat and took my mother's hand. It was warm. Thank you, Lord, I thought. Thank you for one more hour. Counsel leaned toward me. Ms. Whitmore, we need the original healthcare proxy. You said it's at your home and with her primary doctor. I can contact the doctor. Can someone you trust get the copy from your house? I thought of Luke, 28, big kind hands, a quiet head on his shoulders. My grandson, I said. He has a key. Call him, Counsel said. I dialed. Luke picked up on the second ring. Grandma. Sweetheart, I said, and my voice softened for the first time that day. I need you to do something important. Go to my house. In the pantry top shelf behind the flour tin, there's a cedar recipe box. Inside the lid, taped to the wood, there's a legal envelope. Bring it here. Don't tell anyone you're going. Lock the door behind you. I'm on my way, he said. 15 minutes. Call me when you get there, I said and hung up. Mark had drifted to the far end of the hall. He was on his phone, speaking in a low voice, shoulders turned away. Emily sat on a bench, elbows on knees, face in her hands. I stood and walked over to her. Up close, she looked like a child who'd wandered too far into a dark wood. Look at me, I said, not unkindly. She lifted her head, eyes red. I'm so sorry, she whispered. He said you didn't want the burden. He said you told him to handle it. He said you were tired. I am tired, I said. But I am not done. Her gaze dropped to her belly. I didn't mean for, she stopped. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Then help me, I said. Tell the truth. To the police. To your supervisor. To yourself. She nodded, a small broken thing. Okay. I went back to my chair, sat and prayed with my mother's hand in mine. For a small stretch of minutes, time behaved. Machines hummed. Nurses walked. The world held. My phone buzzed. A text from Luke. At your house. Going in now. My heart tapped a faster rhythm. Be careful, I typed. Cedar box, pantry behind flour tin. Lock up. Got it, he replied. Door is already unlocked? Did you forget? I slid down my back. No, I whispered to the phone. I did not forget. Lock it now. Call 911 if anything looks wrong. Do not go in if you feel unsafe. No reply. A dot blinked, paused, blinked again. Then, the pantry light is on. Did you? The typing dots vanished. Luke. I said into the phone. Luke, answer me. Nothing. I stood so fast my chair scraped the floor. Counsel looked up. Everything okay? No, I said. He's at my house. The door was unlocked. The pantry light. I couldn't finish. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with a shaking thumb. A man's voice, jaunty and warm like a radio host, filled my ear. I knew it before my mind let me know it. Janet, Mark said, cheerful as a Sunday morning. Funny thing. I swung by the house to grab some things and ran into Luke. We're just having a little chat. He's fine. But you know how kids are with old paperwork. They don't always know what they're looking at. What did you do? My voice was a thin wire. Oh, nothing dramatic. He laughed softly. Just a little insurance. Bring me Emily's badge and your mother's current chart, and I'll meet you at Willow Pines. We'll make this smooth. You won't get a thing, I said. Not a page. Not a paperclip. Oh, Janet, he sighed as if I'd disappointed him at charades. You always loved a scene. You have 10 minutes to call me back. After that, I can't promise what Luke will find in that pantry. The line went dead. I stared at the black screen. My hands felt like ice. In the bed, my mother stirred, eyes opening just enough to catch the light. Machines kept their metronome beat. I looked down the hall. Emily watched me with a face full of dread. Karen met my eyes and saw the storm. Call the police, I said to Counsel, my voice low and steady as a church bell. Tell them my husband is at my house and my grandson may be in danger. The fire alarm shrieked. Red strobes exploded along the ceiling. Doors clicked. The unit shifted like a sleeping animal kicked awake. A nurse shouted, "Smoke in the west stairwell." Someone pulled an oxygen tank. Somewhere a baby cried. And in the instant every head turned toward the flashing lights, my mother's monitor went flat, one long note that knifed the air. I spun to the glass. Her bed was empty. The sound of the flatline ripped through me. That high, merciless tone stretched the world until it felt like I was falling into it. I lunged to the glass window of my mother's ICU room, my hands slapping hard against it. The bed was empty. The blanket folded. The monitor's cables dangled like cut vines. Her pillow had a faint indent, still warm enough I knew to hold her shape. I stumbled backward, my voice raw. She was just there. I was holding her hand. Karen, the charge nurse, shoved past me and barreled into the room. "Check every exit," she barked. "Nobody moves patients without clearance." The police officers snapped to motion, one calling for backup, the other sprinting down the hall toward the fire stairwell. Red strobe lights strobed across their uniforms, making them look like figures in a nightmare. "Janet." Counsel grabbed my elbow, steadying me. His face had lost its calm. "This is deliberate. The alarm's a diversion." I ripped my arm free. "Of course it's deliberate. He's taken her. He's taken my mother." Behind us, Emily sat frozen on the bench, her face white as chalk. She whispered one word under her breath over and over. "Oh God. Oh God. Oh God." I turned on her, my eyes like fire. Where would he take her? Tell me now. Emily's lips trembled. She looked at her hands. He mentioned Willow Pines more than once. He said it was cleaner than ICU. He said the staff there wouldn't ask so many questions. Willow Pines, I repeated, the name sour in my mouth. I knew it, an old, low-slung brick nursing facility on the edge of town, the kind where patients disappeared behind beige curtains and families whispered guilt in the parking lot. But how could he move her there in seconds? The fire alarm was still screeching, the elevators locked down, the stairwells clogged with evacuating patients. Unless this had been planned for days. Counsel caught my eye, reading my thoughts. If he forged transport papers once, he could do it again. He has allies. Someone on staff. I felt dizzy. Then she's gone. He's already... No, Karen snapped from the doorway, her voice sharp as glass. Not on my watch. That man doesn't get the last word. He turned to me. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you know what this is really about? Money? Property? What is he chasing?" My throat tightened. Mama's voice floated back. "Cedar Box. June 78. Beg. There's a paper," I said slowly. "In a cedar box at my house. It must be important enough for him to risk everything. My mother's signature maybe. Or something tied to the house. Or..." My voice broke. "Her will." Dana, the social worker, pressed her folder tighter to her chest. "If your mother revised her will in 1978 and hid the paperwork, it could override later documents. That cedar box could decide who inherits her assets. If your husband knows about it..." "He's after it," I finished. "He thinks if he controls the box, he controls everything." A horrible realization sank in. Luke. My grandson. My house. Right now. I yanked my phone from my sweater pocket, hands shaking. The last call was from Mark. Luke hadn't texted back since. I dialed. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered. "Grandma." It was Luke, breathless. Relief punched me so hard I almost fell. "Luke. Thank God. Are you safe?" "Yes, sort of. I'm in your house." "He was here, Grandma. He tried to get the box before I could. But..." His voice faltered. "There's more than one of them." My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean more than one?" "Another man. Big guy." He said nothing, just stood by the door while Mark searched the pantry. I barely got upstairs in time. I'm hiding in the attic crawlspace now. I still have the box. The box. My voice cracked. "You have it." "Yes. But Grandma..." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They're still here. And they know I didn't run far." The line went quiet except for his ragged breathing. Then faintly I heard a man's voice in the background. Mark's voice. "Luke. Come on down, son. Don't make this hard. We're family. We just need that envelope. Nobody needs to get hurt." I clutched the phone so hard my knuckles went white. "Luke, listen to me. Don't come down. Stay hidden. I'm on my way. Do you hear me? I'm coming." He whispered back. "Hurry." The line clicked dead. I swayed, the world spinning. My mother was gone. My grandson was trapped. And my husband of 60 years, was hunting both of them. Karen gripped my shoulders. We'll find her, Janet. But first, you have to decide. Do we lock down the hospital and track your mother here, or do you go after that cedar box and your grandson? You can't do both at once. Her words crashed over me like waves. One choice meant saving my mother from being smuggled away into the shadows. The other meant protecting Luke, and the very papers my husband wanted to steal. My heart thudded against my ribs. I closed my eyes, torn in two. And then down the hall the elevator dinged again. Its doors slid open and out rolled a stretcher, covered in a white sheet. And beneath it, I could see the pale outline of a thin hand dangling, a hospital bracelet glinting under the strobe lights. The stretcher rolled out of the elevator like a ghost ship, lights strobing red across the white sheet. My legs moved before my mind did. "Mama!" I cried, pushing through the knot of nurses and security until my palms hit cold metal. "Hold!" Karen barked, stepping in, gloved hand already reaching for the sheet's corner. The police officer with the calm eyes flanked the other side. "On 3, Karen said. 1, 2. She whisked the sheet back. Not my mother. An empty training torso lay on the gurney, plastic skin, a practice 4 taped to a rubber arm, a hospital bracelet looped loosely around it like a cruel joke. For one awful beat it looked human. Then my brain caught up and rage burned the fog clean out of me. "A decoy," counsel said, voice flat. "They triggered the fire alarm to unlock procedures, then pushed this through to scatter staff." Karen's jaw set hard. "They're trying to make us chase shadows while they move the real patient." Emily, still on the bench, pressed both hands to her mouth. Tears leaked through her fingers. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have seen it. I should have." "Save the should-haves for later," Karen said, already moving. "Check the service tunnel cameras. Lock the loading dock. Nobody leaves in scrubs without a verified ID." She snapped her head toward the officer. "And get me eyes on the AUX elevator by materials management." If they ran low. The unit shifted from panic to purpose. Radios crackled. Doors clicked. A map unfurled on the nurse's station screen. Counsel leaned close, tracing a finger along a gray corridor. "Here. There's a staff corridor that bypasses the central elevators and the fire stairwell. If someone knew the drill, they could ride a supply lift to the sub-basement and hit the north dock. Which spits onto Birch Lane," Karen said. "Behind the dumpsters." "Birch Lane," Emily whispered, eyes widening. "Willow Pines has a side entrance on Birch." Like bones clicking into place, the picture sharpened. The fake stretcher, the alarm, the rear exit, the nursing home with beige curtains and quiet doors. I felt a cold, bright calm slide over me, the kind you only find when terror burns itself out. 2 fronts, the calm-eyed officer said, already dialing. "We lock down here and move a unit to Willow Pines. And we get someone to your house for the box." "My grandson is there," I said. "He has it. Mark is with him." Saying his name tasted like aspirin. "Then we split," counsel said. He turned to the officer. "You stay here with Karen and coordinate. I'll escort Ms. Whitmore to her house with Patrol Unit 2. "I'm going," I said, already pulling my sweater tight. "I'm not letting that cedar box leave my sight." Karen stepped in front of me, those steady eyes pinning me. "If you go with police and you keep your phone live. We'll keep fighting from here. Your mother is not alone." He squeezed my hand strong as rope. "I promise you." "What about me?" Emily's voice was tiny. "What can I do that actually helps?" I looked at her, really looked. She was young and threaded through with fear, tied to a man who had taught her to lie to herself. I remembered being 25 and sure I could carry a secret without it leaking out of my eyes. "Tell the truth," I said. "Right now. Give Karen and the officers every message, every order you got. Names. Times. The whole lattice. Put it in writing. That's how a bad tree comes down, paper cuts." She nodded hard, tears slick. "Okay." The officer hustled me into a patrol car. As we pulled away, I pressed my palm to the glass and watched Karen shrink in the mirror, a lighthouse in blue scrubs holding the storm at bay. We sped through the streets of my town, past the grocery with the chalkboard specials, past the church with the banner about the fall potluck, past the corner where I used to wait for the school bus in snow up to my ankles. Life held ordinary and upright even while mine tilted. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Tick-tock. A second later, a photo. My pantry door cracked open, a sliver of yellow light cutting the dark. Another text. Bring the envelope, Jan. Don't answer, the officer said, eyes on the road. Let us walk in first. I won't do anything foolish, I said. But I won't do nothing. We turned onto my street. The maples out front tossed their leaves gold like coins. My house, my small yellow house with blue shutters and a porch swing that creaked in summer, looked exactly the same. The sameness hurt. Stay in the car until we clear, the officer said. Her partner was already out, hand at his belt, eyes sweeping the hedges. He took the porch. She took the side. I watched my own windows like they belonged to a stranger. A minute later, the officer waved me forward. Front hall clear. We hear movement upstairs. Luke, I breathed and stepped into my own doorway like it was a confession. The smell hit me first. Lemon oil and something chemical sharp and wrong like paint thinner in July. My runner rug was skewed. One of my mixing bowls lay upside down on the floor like a knocked helmet. The pantry light was on. Upstairs, the partner called softly from the landing. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Luke. I said, my voice climbing the staircase ahead of me. It's Grandma. I brought help. A whisper from the attic hatch. Here. It was thin, but it was my boy. The officer slid the attic ladder down with practiced hands. A dusty draft breathed out. Let me, she said and went up first, flashlight sweeping. Hand me the box, she murmured. A cedar rectangle emerged from the darkness, then my grandson's hand, big, calloused from the auto shop, shaking just a little. I pressed it with my whole palm the way my mother had pressed mine an hour ago. I wanted to pull him into my arms and cry like a fool. No time. The officer passed me the box. The scent hit me and 47 summers unfurled. The cedar shed, peaches on the counter, my mother humming Patsy Cline, me on a stool with a pencil behind my ear. I lifted the lid. Taped beneath, exactly where Mama said. A legal envelope, yellowed at the edges, stamped June 1978. I slid the paper out. Counsel had joined us by then, breathless from the rush. He unfolded the document on my hall table, hands careful. His brows rose. This is a revocable living trust, executed 1978, funded with the Ellison family home, adjacent acreage and a stake in Ellison Hardware. Primary trustee, Margaret Ellison. Successor trustee, Janet Whitmore. He glanced at me. You. He scanned lower. Addendum, springing healthcare directive. Upon incapacity, health decisions vest in successor trustee, not spouse or in-law, and any medical POA not signed in the presence of Dr. H. Ellison, he pointed, your father. My father was still practicing then, I said. The paper shone like armor. He knew how to build a fence out of words. Counsel's finger found one more clause. Spousal exclusion covenant. In the event of undue influence or attempted misappropriation by a spouse of the successor trustee, said spouse is to be treated as having predeceased for the purposes of inheritance distribution. He looked up, eyes hot. Janet, this document neuters any claim Mark thinks he has. And if we record a certified copy, it freezes any transfer based on forged POAs. A shaky exhale left my chest like a bird flying out of a cage. Then we call the courthouse. We call the bank. The front door latch clicked. The officer's hand went to her holster. She angled to the foyer. Police, she called, voice iron. Hands where I can see them. A laugh floated in. Mark stepped over the mat like he owned it, palms raised, smile cut from ice. Behind him came the big man Luke had described, shoulders like a refrigerator and eyes that didn't catch light. Don't scratch the hardwood, I said, because sometimes the right sentence is the wrong one and I needed to hear my own voice hit something normal. Mark's smile didn't move. January, he spotted the cedar box, the spread document, the officer, counsel, Luke halfway down the ladder. He nodded like a chess player seeing 10 moves. You always were good at hide and seek. Game's over, the officer said. Step back onto the porch. He did not step back. His eyes flicked past us. Past the pantry, past the hall table, to the garage door standing ajar. He inhaled the chemical tang and lit with understanding. Such a forgetful woman, he said, clucking his tongue. Leaving the mower fuel uncapped. Dangerous. We're not playing, the officer snapped. He lifted his hands a little higher. Neither am I. The big man moved. It was a blur. One stride, too, and he had the officer's partner by the shoulder, slamming him into the doorframe. The house rang with it. The calm-eyed officer swung her weapon up. Do not, she started. A sharp pop. Not a gun, metal on wood. The attic ladder jerked. Luke yelped. The hinge pin had been knocked free with a thrown tool. The big man must have palmed it on the porch. The ladder sagged under Luke's weight. Luke. I cried, reaching up as he clung, boots scrambling. Counsel grabbed Luke's wrist. The officer lunged to cover us. The big man took a step toward the hall table. His hand hovered over the truss like a hawk over a field. Mark held up his phone and turned the screen to me. A live video feed filled it, bleary, shaky, of a white hallway, beige curtains, a gold-lettered plaque. Willow Pines. The camera panned. My mother, my bird-boned mother, lay on a narrow bed, an oxygen cannula in her nose. A gloved hand, faceless, adjusted her blanket. Split-screen technology, Mark said lightly. We can be in two places at once now, can't we? He flicked to another angle. Back in trance, Birch Lane, a van idling. You bring me the envelope, we call off the ride. You keep it, we roll. The officer's radio squawked, a burst of code I couldn't parse. Sirens wailed somewhere far, somewhere near. The chemical tang deepened, hungry. I felt the old steel rise in me, the one I used on first graders who stole crayons and teenagers who shoved. You won't touch her, I said. You won't touch him. I tipped my head toward Luke in the trust. And you won't touch this. Mark sighed, theatrical. Always the librarian. Always the rules. He reached into his pocket slowly, too slowly, and slid out a box of matches. Real ones, paper, old school, the kind we used on campouts with the scouts. He struck one with a lazy flick. The flame bloomed, small and alive. Don't, the officer said, level weapon steady. Everyone gets a choice, he said, eyes on me, flame licking the air. Envelope for a ride. Or ash for a memory. Put it out, I said. You'll burn your own house down with this. He smiled. It's not my house. Behind me the attic ladder groaned. Luke's grip slipped. Counsel grunted, hauling. The big man's fingers brushed the trust paper. I slapped my palm down on it harder than I meant to. The paper's edges bit my skin. Move, I told the big man, and my voice came out a school bell. He hesitated, just long enough for the officer to shove him back with her shoulder. He staggered into the pantry door. The pantry light swung, casting wild lemon-yellow arcs. Mark lowered the match toward the dark line that bled from the garage threshold across the tile. A gleaming thread of fuel I hadn't seen until the flame found it and kissed. The line caught. Fire ran like a slick fox under the pantry door, racing toward the hall where I stood with my hand on 47 years of my family's life. Luke cried out as the ladder hinge screamed and snapped. He fell. I lunged. And the flame reached the threshold.